Time is something I am thinking about a lot today for a variety of reasons. One of them is that it is already July 19th, 2026. We are well into the year. It will be school again for kids in our local area in about 3 weeks already. Feels like summer has just flown by. I think they've been out for about a month now. And the other day, I did visit the State Museum because my daughter and younger grandson were hanging out there. They've been visiting various local museums for the summer break, and I think that's a great idea. They take a little sketch pad with them when they go and spend time together in these various museums exploring and sketching and bonding. And I used to take my kids out quite a bit during the summer because obviously they would get bored. We lived in a small apartment at the time. Unfortunately, my husband and I were unable to buy a house until after our kids had grown up and moved out. And I think this is probably going to be much more common for people to not be able to buy a house when they are younger, if at all, the way prices have changed, which is unfortunate. But time is a very interesting concept, and it seems like the days when I took my own kids out for our summer adventures wasn't that long ago, but it really was more than 30 years now because my kids, as I said, are well into adulthood and have kids, and those kids are almost adults at this point. At least one of them is going to be 16 this year. So time marches on, and it marches on quickly. It feels like, as a young mother, when I had very small children at home, time felt like it dragged on and on. And back in childhood, it was very similar. Time could take forever, especially during a school day. We were waiting for that 3 o'clock bell to let us go home and do our fun afternoon activities when we were tired of sitting in the classroom, being stuck there for hours on end. Time felt like it just stretched on forever in those days. But now, time goes by so quickly. JT and I have all these events that we've planned out and book releases. And when we plan them, it feels like they are so far into the future. But now we're here. I released a book last month. We did an event yesterday. I'm doing another event today. He's got an event and a book release on Friday. And the anticipation isn't quite what it used to be because we know that they're going to get here quicker than we expect, and then they'll be in the past. So time is a very interesting concept. And I also started thinking about it as a writer, because when we're writing about time, if you're writing a scene, normally the scene might take place in a particular moment in time. For example, you have two characters interacting, and they are sitting and enjoying a cup of coffee, maybe, and they are talking about something. Or, for example, in From Tundra to Tiara, JT and I had the main character, the main male character, as a sled dog racer, and he was obviously racing through the Alaskan tundra, and our main female character was a vet tech along the race route, and they spent time together because one of his dogs got injured and then he got injured. So it brought them together, and it was a moment of time that they shared together. And that can be easy, putting those moments of time in a book or a story or a movie. The transitions can be challenging because a book might take place, say you're writing a romance novel. Maybe the romance takes place over the course of a weekend. It that's pretty easy to write because you can write it in real time basically. they can get up and have breakfast together and then go for a walk, and then something, they have to go to the store maybe. And you can have various events take them through the course of that time. And in the meantime, they can be learning more about each other and their likes and dislikes, and their attraction can build up. So by the end of that first day, as they're thinking about, well, it's bedtime, maybe they've been thrown together for some random reason. And there's famously, there's one of the tropes is single bed. They only have one place for them to sleep. And we did do something similar in From Tundra to Tiara. And there was no hanky panky, because if you read the book, you'll know why. But the single bed trope is basically the two people may or may not have an attraction to each other, and they have to share a bed. And there was an old, I don't remember if it was a Cary Grant movie, but the female was on one side, the male was on the other side. They hung a blanket in between them, kind of as a faux wall. But that's not really going to stop anything from happening. So there's the tension of that, and the time that that you need to get some sleep at some point. There is a time limitation on your day because your body is tired and you need to rest. So time factors into this. It's like, well, you could sleep in shifts, but what if you're both exhausted because you've been out maybe hiking all day, and then you end up in a tent with a single sleeping bag? So is one of you going to try to stay awake, maybe to feed the fire? It's really cold outside, or you're going to watch out for wildlife or something like that. So those kinds of things can factor into your story. And if you're doing it in a short period of time, it transitions smoothly from one time to the next. But if you're writing something where it might be an epic fantasy that takes place over the course of centuries, for example, maybe your character is very long-lived. How do you mark the passage of time, the transitions? That is a much more challenging concept, and it takes a lot more of the author's time to figure out the smoothest transitions, the ones that make the most sense, because if you don't do it appropriately, it will be jarring to the readers. So figuring those things out as an author takes time. And as much as I dislike the concept of time, we are just driven by it because our days cycle. We have sunrise, we have sunset, we have high noon. Noon is a concept that we have placed on the course of a day, but the sun does reach an apex at some point of the day. So it does make sense to mark that in some way that is common to everybody. And so I understand how the concept of time and clocks came about. But then we have the Earth as a globe. The sun is not always shining on every part of the Earth. So we have different time zones. And then you have seasons because the Earth also wobbles. And then you have the northern hemisphere getting summer, whereas in the southern hemisphere it's winter. And you have the passage of time based on seasons. And time is just a very challenging concept to wrap your head around sometimes. And for some odd reason, when JT and I were doing our podcast this morning, I just started really thinking about time because his birthday is coming up on Friday. He does have a book coming out, so if you'd like to give him a present, please pre-order Defying Salvation. But, he this year is transitioning to Medicare. He is going to be 65 years old. And we got married very young. We've been together the entirety of our adult lives. So the fact that we are now in our 60s, we have spent more than 4 decades of our lives together. We have been together more than we have been with anybody else in our lives, our children, our parents. This concept is mind-boggling. Thinking about 44 years of marriage. I distinctly remember our wedding day, but it was so long ago. And, time is just confusing. So I think another one of the reasons I'm thinking about time so much is that as an older writer, as someone who is coming back to writing later in life, I feel that my time is winding down. We all have what you might call an expiration date, and not to be too morbid about it or anything, but we all know the course of a life will eventually reach an end point. And we don't know when that will be. When we are in our 20s, we feel like, life is stretched out before us. We have so many opportunities. But as an older writer, I'm feeling that I have all these projects I want to do. And that's one of the reasons it may seem like I'm rushing my projects, but I do have a lot that I want to put out into the world still that I haven't yet. And I don't know how much time I have to do that. And one of the frustrations I think both JT and I are dealing with is we are feeling this kind of approach of an expiration date. We have a deadline, you know, a natural deadline basically, that there will be a point where we will not be able to produce writing anymore. We may still be alive, but we may be unable to function as writers. So we do feel like we want to get what we can done with the time we have. And we are a little frustrated that more people are not reading our work, that we're not selling as well as we would hope to, because we haven't yet put in all the time over the course of our adult lives, all the time paying our dues, you might say. We haven't gotten to the point yet where people maybe have recognized that we're doing this and recognized who we are and, started enjoying our work. And this is not uncommon for artists of all kinds. There are many artists who were not appreciated in their life, really well-known and well-respected authors and painters and, even actors and actresses. There are always those character actors and actresses that you see in a movie, you recognize them, you can never quite remember their name, but you do enjoy their work. And then nobody really celebrates them until after they've passed away because they're just part of the background. So we are kind of feeling like we are those background players right now. And that may be all we ever are at this point. We don't know if anybody will ever celebrate what we've written. We hope people will actually enjoy it. But we are feeling a sense of an approaching deadline where we will not be able to produce work anymore for one reason or another. And if we do not have a following by that point, then it is less likely that people will be following us, because without putting out new books and stories, what we have will just be lingering out there. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm thinking about time so much right now, is that I am feeling that approach of a deadline. I am 63 years old now. My mother passed away when she was 74, and her family were all somewhat short-lived. Some of her siblings died in their 40s, 50s. Her father died in his 50s. Her mother died in her 60s. So that side of my family is short-lived. And with that thought in mind, if I only have about a decade left to get everything done that I want to do, then yes, I'm going to be pressuring myself with all these deadlines, because I have so many ideas that I want to explore and share. So time, it's possible I could, like my father is 85 years old and he's still driving all over the place and climbing on his roof to fix things. And he's very active and vital. So it's possible I could be more like my dad and still have another couple of decades to go, in which case it wouldn't be such a rush. But we never know. On a mental level, there is Alzheimer's in our family, and I don't think I have the markers for it, but you never know for sure. So there are so many pressures as a later in life writer that I don't think you feel as a younger writer. Younger writers, of course, are putting out their work, and they do want to be known. They want to make a big splash. They want to earn their fortune so that they can do all the things that they want to do besides writing. And we do feel some of that too. We would like to make enough of a splash that we can do a few things financially that we currently can't manage. But I think there are very distinct differences in how a writer approaches their work as a young person versus as an older person, especially as if we have come into it as an older person. So, just some of my thoughts today about time. If and when, if or when we do end up making a splash as authors, then I will say it's about time. And part of that is because I did start writing in my 20s, but then I took a break to do other things for financial reasons. I couldn't manage everything with my level of energy. I wasn't able to raise my kids, go to school, work, and write all at the same time. Something had to go. And so I prioritized the kids, I prioritized my education, I prioritized my career in order to make ends meet. And now that I have the luxury of going back to my writing, I feel like I've lost a lot of momentum. Not that I really had any to begin with, but I'm definitely feeling the pressure of time. And who knows how much more time I will have to produce my writing. But those are some things that are on my mind today. And it just kind of segued into time transitions in my writing, because I know in some cases when I have written a book, it can be challenging to determine when you want to transition from one day to the next or 1 year to the next, depending on the course of the story. So time is just a challenging concept all around. And I really don't like thinking about it too much, especially in retrospect, looking back at all the things I feel like maybe I could have accomplished if I had had more energy, but that's just not the person I am. So here I am. I am what I am. In the immortal words of Popeye, I am what I am. And I'm strong to the finish because I eats me spinach. But time, it's just, uh, it's mind boggling actually. And the progression of time is just the progression, and our perception of it is very different from when we're a young person to when we're an old person, because I think many people would agree with me, even at younger ages now. I think with social media, with all the things we have keeping us occupied so much of the day, I think time feels like it's passing much more quickly. And having those long, lazy afternoons to just lay on the grass and look at the clouds is really a thing of the past. I don't know that many people do anything like that anymore. And it is a shame, because then it allows you to just take some breaths and live in the moment, and it slows things down both internally and externally. And I'm sad that we've kind of lost that with our go, 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 social media 24/7, 365. Just, we've lost a lot in that transition. And I think some of what we've lost is our enjoyment of quiet time, our enjoyment of lazy time, you might call it, even though it's not technically laziness to just take a break. And it is a shame. But this is where we are. I think I already mentioned today is July 19th, 2026 already, and I'm well into my year of posting daily videos. I've done pretty well, surprisingly, because when I first started out earlier this year, I felt very self-conscious about sitting down and talking like this, but I got over that. So this has been a successful process in that way. And I'm hoping that in the future, when maybe I am not able to do other things, uh, like many of the other hobbies that I hope to pick up sometime soon, I will be able to look back at these videos and think, oh, well, that's what I was up to, because otherwise I wouldn't remember. Because over the course of time, we remember some of the big fun events. We remember some of the big not so fun events, but we don't always remember those little in between moments that make up the course of a life. So, this, I guess, in a way, is me marking time and keeping a record of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and how I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. And if nobody enjoys it now, maybe somewhere down the road, somebody will look back and say, oh, well, that was an interesting point in history. And I know in my case, I wondered things like my husband's grandmother talked about um, surviving the influenza epidemic in the early 20th century. And I wondered about that until we had the COVID pandemic a few years ago. So I no longer wonder what that would have been like because I experienced it. But other people may not experience, well, hopefully won't experience something like that anytime soon. And hopefully, videos that people have put out during that time will teach them a little bit about what it would be like to live through that experience. So, even though we're not currently living through the worst of that pandemic, we are on the tail end of coming back from it. People are still getting vaccines, and there are other things going around that are making people ill. And there's just so much happening in the world that will be recorded historically, but the personal responses to those events, the everyday person dealing with the struggle of getting through something like a pandemic, that kind of thing ends up being lost to history unless someone decides to do something random like me recording this. And now that I think about it, I kind of wish I had recorded daily during the pandemic so I could look back and remember what it was like. I do have memories of being sent home from work because we didn't know how long we'd be out. We didn't know, you know, who or what would be happening next. It's it's kind of a wild time to look back on right now. So I still have some memories of it, but not as many as I would have had if I had done these videos a few years ago. And I don't tend to talk a lot about what's going on in the world outside unless it's something that I'm experiencing directly. But based on the dates on these videos, somebody could say, well, this event happened on this particular day. I wonder what the average person was doing. And they could actually look at my videos and say, oh, well, maybe this wasn't such a big deal to them in the moment. So we never know what we're going to capture if we're doing something like this in real time, because as I learned doing events recently where I had planned to actually record videos during the events, it's not always possible because things are happening so quickly. And I think moving forward, if I am hoping to capture anything like a book event in real time, it's going to be a lot more of a challenge than I thought. So that was really a tangent I didn't mean to go on because I was thinking about time and not, well, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it does relate to time because I'm talking about my daily experiences and how I am experiencing my time. And, hopefully somewhere, someone someday may find this to be interesting or not. Maybe my grandkids will stumble on it someday and think, oh, wow, grandma looked really old to me then, but she seems young now. I know I thought that about my own. I'm going to stop babbling now because I'm going to need to get ready. We have an event in Reno again today. Actually, I have an event. I'm going to go do a reading at a retirement community, and then we'll be preparing for the rest of the week for JT's big book release event on Friday. So we still have a lot to accomplish. We're continuing to work on the book together. I did get my proofread of Battleborn Bride back, so I really need to ramp up getting that manuscript finished and polished and formatted and get my book cover so that I can get my copies in hand in time for all the events I have planned for October. So far that's going well. And as I've promised, I will be doing a series of videos about my marketing plans for that. And that will be coming very soon, along with my Spooktober videos. I am getting started on Spooktober. I haven't actually sat down to write any of the poems yet, but I have been mulling what I have researched on the poetic style of Edgar Allan Poe and The Raven, and I will be putting that into action. So I'll probably be alternating videos between Spooktober poems and my marketing for Battleborn Bride. So if you are new here and you're interested in following along on those adventures, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and, ring the bell, like blah, 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 share it with your friends, all that good stuff. You know the drill. We are also still participating in the America's Favorite Couple competition, which I have been mentioning, and I'll put the link for the voting down below. And I've talked about that probably in way too much detail, but we are hoping to keep the visibility going at least. I don't know if it's working, but I think if we can continue to advance, maybe we will get a little bit more visibility that way, even though I'm pretty sure we don't really have much of a chance of winning this. That's at least my hope. And doing it in tandem with the marketing for Battleborn Bride, I'm hoping piggybacking those on top of each other might help build some momentum. So we'll see how that goes. But I thank you for joining me today. I hope you are having a wonderful day. It is Sunday here. It is warm. Currently, it's almost 90 degrees here in my sunroom, so it's getting a little toasty. I need to close the door into the house. And like I said, I need to get ready and to go out and do things. So I will chat with you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.